evening. Does it work? I guess it is. I can't hear it. Okay, there we go. Maybe it was silenced. I don't know. Thanks for coming back tonight. Even though you knew there was going to be some kind of a mission report, maybe you read it in the bulletin or you saw it this morning on the PowerPoint. I think I have a verse up there, Acts chapter 14, verse 26 through 28. An important passage, an important verse in a sense, because there we find that as Paul came back from one of his mission journeys, that the church at Antioch, where he had left from, that it says that they were gathered together, and then he was able to give them a report of the things that God had done while he was preaching the gospel in various places. Just like with many other things, what we know that we need the Bible authority for, we don't need 100 verses that give us the authority to do something that's right. And this passage, of course, gives an example, a biblical example of that the church came together in order to find out what was things that were being done, I guess, in other places, and specifically mission work, and when one has been sent out. It's been a busy summer, but I guess it's still kind of a catch-up in a sense from the couple of years back, but I appreciate very much that being able to go and also being able to give this little report tonight. I'm not all that satisfied with all the pictures. I worked on it a long time, but pictures now, they're just so big and they take up so much space, and I was just having trouble with it. But anyway, it is what it is. I am thankful to God for the opportunities that He gives me, and of course the privilege that we have to preach the gospel from Mark chapter 16 and verse 15 and 16, as we do here each and every week, and of course we have two other places. And thank you for your support always, the church here, comments that are made, the encouraging words that are given to me personally, and also financial support to be here, but also occasionally financial support for doing the work. There are other people that are not members of this congregation that often will send support. They know that I go and they read the printed reports, and so sometimes they'll just send some money to the church here and say it's for the mission work that I'm doing. So I appreciate your support and of course theirs as well, those from other places. I'm thankful, of course, for all the brethren in other places that in Mexico or other countries or even in the United States that have a desire to do some kind of work in that nature of taking the gospel to their area and receive others in order to help them be able to do that. And we've had safe travel this year and all the trips that we made, and so we're very thankful for that and also the work. Okay. A few obstacles, none of them related to anything about preaching or teaching, and none of them related to anything about travel out of the country. All the obstacles were in the country, and they pertain to the picture that you see in the back, and that is air travel. Air travel. 3 canceled flights. That's no fun. Mexico in June, coming back. We came back from Mexico, and we're going to come from San Diego back here. And when I'm in Mexico going back, I get this message: your flight's canceled and you can't leave till it's either Sunday or Monday. And this was Friday. So fortunately, I was able to buy 2 tickets on another airline to go finally get here by Sunday morning. The plane got in here at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning, so I was able to be here by 10:30. So that was one of the deals. When we went with Wesley and John Griffin and I went just a couple of weeks ago, where everybody's in bed, and we get this message: your flight for in the morning at 5:30 is canceled. What are we going to do? I mean, we had to be there tomorrow, the next day. So called John. I knew Wesley was way asleep. We were supposed to get up at 3 in the morning, so I said, okay, well, I'll call John. We'll talk to Wesley at 3 in the morning when he's up and ready to go. So John and I got it. We talked about it and finally bought tickets on another airline to be able to get there. And then Wesley gets up, and he's ready to go to the airport, and he gets a phone call from me saying, Wesley, you don't have to go yet. You can just wait a little while. So on another airline, we were able to go at 7 o'clock. Coming back, we are, all three of us, in the same motel room, in bed, ready to get up to go to a 6 o'clock flight. The message comes in, your flight has been canceled. So, oh no, not again. So, but we made it home. So the only problems we had really was airline, and that's it. Nothing else, no other problems. We're thankful for that. Okay. These are just kind of lists of mission trips. One was started in May and went into June, going to Monterey, Mexico. Another one was to Baja California, Hamilton, Montana, and then in just a couple of weeks ago to Mexico, to 3 different cities in 2 different states, and we actually went to 3 different states in Mexico. All right. At the Monterey School of Preaching, we went down there to just 2 of us, Chuck Northrup, and I went down there to teach. As far as, well, Chuck and I traveled together. There were some others that were there. You can see the names: Brian Braswell, Chuck Northrup, Joe Ruiz, Peyton Reed, and I were teachers of the men and of preachers. And then to the wives were Bonnie Ruiz and Gina Braswell. And each of us had about 10 classes. And the classes were about 50 minutes. So it was a lot of preparation and a lot of teaching. But in addition to that, I also did a lot of translation for Brian and for Chuck and different ones that do not speak Spanish. Joe Ruiz was also doing some translation. And he preached an evening gospel meeting at the congregation where the School of Preaching is. It's called Sierra Ventana, which means it's a window to see the mountains, and that's really what you can see from there. But in the evening, during that gospel meeting, I had set up for Chuck and Brian and I to go to other congregations and preach. And so every night we were involved in preaching in various congregations in the city of Monterey. But before that, Chuck and I, going down, we were there on the weekend before, and we preached in Reynosa. And so we had quite, from beginning to end, it was preaching, and teaching, and we were very, very busy during that time. Okay. Our arrival to Reynosa, that was the first place. We crossed the border and went to Reynosa, and we were involved in teaching, preaching. We didn't realize we were going to be involved in door knocking, but they'd also, well, we kind of did, but they planned a door knocking. After the morning worship, they had a meal together, and then all the members went out and door knocked, and of course we were invited to go too, so we did a part of that. They were still wearing masks, and they probably still are there at Reynosa. It kind of just depends on the town and the congregation. So Chuck and I he was actually preaching. I gave the class, and then he preached, but he's preaching of course, with his mask, and I'm teaching with mine, and you can also imagine how warm it was. But this is a congregation down there. It's the Lampositas congregation in Reynosa. Pretty good-sized congregation. And those were the people, for the most part, that went out to go door knocking in the afternoon. The family down here that Chuck and I are with, they're the ones that actually picked us up. I think they picked us up at the airport in McAllen and took us across the border. And then we stayed with them Saturday night and were with them Sunday, and they drove us to Monterey. And Daniel Martinez, his father is Felipe Martinez, who preaches in Ciudad Victoria. You've heard of him before. Well, Daniel's job takes him into the United States every day, so he has a certain pass and credentials to be able to come back into the United States. So the other day when Wesley and John and I came back to Reynosa, he picked us up he and his wife picked us up at the bus station. And we thought we were going to have to walk across the border, and he said he could just take us across, and so they just took us across that evening, and everything was fine. But it was a good day and good time with the congregation there. Okay, we arrived to Monterey, and so the picture at the top was on their Facebook, and of course it's in Spanish. They had it so people could hear and listen and all that, and that's what I was saying in Spanish, evidently at that time. So I was preaching, teaching, doing a lot of translation work. others were preaching and teaching at the same time. They would have a session going on where the students meet, and then they would have a session going on in the auditorium, which is about the size of this auditorium. It's a pretty good sized congregation. And this session was for preachers, and then they had another session going on for the sisters of the congregation. Okay? These are the students this year, for 2 years at the School of Preaching there. They come from various states in Mexico. I talked to them about that and asked them. I can't remember what all, but it seemed like there were 7 or 8 states they were from, and then some from Central American countries as well. Jesus Conrado is the director of the school. He was a co-student with Josh Herndon at the Memphis School of Preaching. He had already been preaching for years and studying, but they were thinking about appointing him to this to being the director of the School of Preaching in Monterey, and they wanted to give him some experience with another school, and also just to have the study in English and learn and have, because they knew he'd be dealing with a lot of Americans as well. So he's doing a fine job. He's a good brother in Christ. Okay. So, in addition to the work at the School of Preaching, Chuck and Brian and I would go to various congregations during the week and during the evening. I can't remember all the names of the congregations. They all have Spanish names and places that, so I can't remember exactly all the names of them because one of them, but 2 of them were new, so we'd never been there before. One of them is Sierra de la Silla, and it doesn't really matter. But down on the lower right is Paco Rodriguez, this photo on the right, and his wife Norma. And we were with that congregation one evening. And this congregation here in Maybellville actually sends $100, I think it's $100 a month support for Paco Rodriguez and the work and the preaching that he does there in Monterey. You see various pictures. We're in the different congregations. Sometimes they're preaching, sometimes I'm preaching, sometimes I'm translating for them. And this one here was, Cerro de la Silla congregation, and they put it on their Facebook, and they had, of course, so people could also read it as well. And Chuck was preaching. It was kind of funny because when you looked at it, it would say it in English, and then it would say it in Spanish when I said it, so you could actually, if you were watching it, you could see what both of us were saying if you couldn't hear it. All right, okay, thank you. So that there's a lot more, of course. We think about what we did there at Monterey. There's a whole lot more because we were busy all of the time. But obviously, in order to talk about some of these others, I'm going to have to just move on a little bit. Baja California, actually, we went there. I've been there twice this year. We went there in March and then went back in June. The one here in June was organized not by me, but by Johnny Cagle in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and the congregation there. And the congregation in Alberton, Kentucky, actually sends some support for the Spanish work here. So, I was able to go with them, and even though they had organized this. We're involved in a lot of different things: Bible classes, gospel meeting, home Bible studies, benevolence, and also there was a few in the group there, up there in that top picture, that did some construction, did a few things for the preacher at his house, did some things at the church building, and so there were a lot of different things that we were able to do there. And there, as you can see, there were brethren from Tennessee and Kentucky and Texas and Iowa and Arkansas. And then 2 young ladies from Ensenada in Baja California came to help us because they mainly did translation work for the ladies when they would teach the children's classes and any other needs that there might have been at that particular time. The picture of the photo there on the lower photo of the congregation is just a kind of like a sample of the congregation worshiping, and that it was usually a pretty full building, and so it was basically full all of the time, anytime we met. I did all the preaching for the gospel meeting. He wanted me to do all the preaching, so I did that. So as you can see, whenever we go on one of these, there's lots of lessons to prepare. And so it's not just, oh, well, you're not going to be here this Sunday. Usually for one or two lessons that I miss this Sunday, I'm usually preparing three or four or more for the place that I'm going. So it's a lot of work in order to organize it, even if, to organize it and other people are preaching and teaching. And then, of course, if I go myself, not Spanish speakers, then I've got to do the translation for all of them as well and whatever they say as far as the preaching and teaching. But I'm thankful to be able to do that. These are just examples of some of the Bible classes. The two top classes were the children's classes. Diane Richardson is teaching over on that class at that particular time. She's from Iowa. And then on this side is Sylvia Marr. She speaks Spanish. She's bilingual. She's from San Antonio, Texas. And so she's a very good worker as well. She's been with us to Mexico, and also on other trips. But Sylvia's got a really good attitude and a very good worker. And, of course, being bilingual helps a lot in those situations. These two pictures here, photos, are of the teenage class. And, there were so many kids crammed in there, in that room. Excuse me. The room, you could hardly, they were just jammed in there. In fact, what they had to do is bring chairs from the auditorium over to there to have we just say, bring your own chair, and everybody would bring a chair. But you can see the kids, the young people were very involved. They were very involved in the Bible studies, the lessons that were being taught to them. And the last night I was there, this young lady on this side, the very far one over here, she came up to me and said, I don't remember her exact words, but she just told me thank you, and she appreciated the classes and those kind of things, even though I didn't teach all the classes. But it was just kind of, it was kind of nice that a young person would just come up to you and tell you thank you for being there and for helping them and those kind of things. So it was a good group of people. Now, of course, you've always got some kids goofing around. They're children, so you've always got a couple of them that don't want to pay attention and those kind of things. Evangelism and Bible studies. Well, you never know what you're going to get into. Baja California is a very sandy place. So we were going looking for a house. And so we were going to turn around. And there obviously been other vehicles there, but the van just started burying itself in the sand. And the only way to get it out was to get all the ladies involved in pushing. So anyway, but we had one photographer in the back, and then of course I'm the driver, so I get to take a picture too. But this group here we were the ones that went out basically door to door as far as going visiting people, teaching Bible studies, doing the more personal work type stuff with people. Michael and Diane Richardson and the two girls, young ladies from Ensenada, who were bilingual as well, and then Sylvia Marr. And so basically the five of us would be involved in that. And Mario, the preacher, of course, was with us because we didn't know where people lived, so he would be with us as well to give us directions. But you can see in the lower picture how the roads are in Baja California. It's just a sandy place. You've heard of the Baja 1000 or race or whatever it is. Well, those vehicles are made for that stuff, but a van isn't. And I didn't know what was going to happen actually because I didn't know if they even had a wrecker in town to pull us out if we got stuck. What would happen? But we were able to get out. All right. We did have several Bible studies. These are some of the examples of some of the people we studied with, various ones that most often, of course, they were women and families, women and children, those kind of Bible studies during the day. So we would just visit various people. most of the people, of course, are quite poor, but they were still willing to study the Bible, and so we were thankful for that. Okay? All right, well, there could be much more said about the June trip to Baja California, but for the time's sake, I need to move on as well. We went to Montana, and I know I gave a report a month ago about that, so this is going to be very brief, but it's just kind of a recap. We had Gift and Maria and Evelyn and Vivian from this congregation were able to go to Montana, as well as John Griffin was able to go as well. So we traveled to Montana, and there we were able to do about the same things as everywhere. We were able to do some evangelism. We were able to do some gospel meetings, Bible classes. They had a vacation Bible school. And so we were pretty much active all the time. These pictures are kind of a collage of some of the other pictures that I've shown before for the most part. So you've probably seen most of these pictures somewhere from when we went to Montana. It was a good trip. All the young ladies were very active, and all the young ladies were very busy, and they seemed to enjoy meeting all the brethren from Montana and other people that were there with us from the state of Washington and various other states that were involved of where brethren came from. And so it was a good trip, and they told me up there, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 weeks later, said that they're still feeling the effect of it. I don't know what that means exactly, but I hope it means something. I hope it's something good. I think it does. I think it meant something good, that they were just so thankful that we were able to be there with them, that they were just encouraged. These are some of the other collage of pictures, photos, taking the gospel into Montana, taking it into the city, knocking doors. All of the men that went were able to preach. Fortunately, I didn't have to translate too many people. Maybe just John Griffin once in a while, but nothing much. When he John, he's great, and but I might have had to translate him once or twice. I don't know. But anyway, we had a good trip. John there preaching the morning devotional, and this is a group of us that were going out to go door knocking and be involved and invite people to the gospel meeting and try to set up Bible studies. And so, again, it was a very active time that we had there with the Christians in Montana, a small congregation of maybe around 50, but they seemed to be very enthusiastic and active about the things that we were trying to do with them. Okay, this is just the most recent trip, and I don't have very many pictures on here. By the time I got to this point, my computer was tired. I wasn't so tired, but my computer was tired, and it was not accepting pictures very well when I tried to move them, and it kept closing, and the program kept closing, and so I just about had to quit. We had a good trip to Mexico. We went to the state of San Luis Potosi, primarily town of Rio Verde. San Luis Potosi is central Mexico, north central Mexico, and we were able to go to 2 places where we had never been, and one was the other state of Querétaro. This is in Cardenas. This is a place. You can see Wesley there in this photo, and right by him is Benjamin Bruce. Benjamin is from Texas. He went to Freed-Hardeman University. He knows Spanish. He knows Greek. He knows Korean. He knows about, I don't know how many languages the kid knows, the young man knows, but he knows a lot. He knows a lot. Well, he was down there, and we had a mission trip, and we were in Rio Verde. And there was a young lady there, and he happened to come, and he met this young lady, Lucy, and they ended up getting married, and now they're just a wonderful couple working, and they've started a congregation in Cardenas. So we went over there to help them. It's about an hour from Rio Verde. And it's just a little, as you can tell, it's a small building. It's really a house. But we were able to have a good work there. We were able to go door knocking and and be out there. Okay? You may see that these people might resemble some people you know. We went to Jalpan, Querétaro. That's where Roberto's from. You know Roberto Moran. Many of you know Roberto, and you talk to Roberto, and if you come in the back, he'll speak to you. Well, his parents are Christians. They came up to the United States one time, and they were baptized, and they went back home, but they're the only Christians in this town. And they live way out in the country in the hills or the mountains. Well, we've been wanting to go there to visit them. They're about 2 hours or so, but in another state from Rio Verde. Well, we were finally able to go. And this is Roberto's father, and that's his mother, Mario and Maria. Maria is very sick. She has had some surgeries. In fact, a couple of weeks before we got there, she had a couple of pretty serious surgeries. So she really wasn't well at all. This is her bedroom. She was in bed. She sat up for the photo, which was very difficult for her, I'm sure, but she wanted to. And I'm sure she would have been, if she felt better, she would have enjoyed our visit a lot more. Her husband, Mario, certainly did. He was just so excited that we were there. Wesley's leading singing. We had worship with them. There's others you can see down here leading singing. So, Evelyn, there's your grandparents. Evelyn's with us tonight as well. So, good. It was great to be with them and get to know them. In Rio Verde, I don't have many pictures here because, like I said, my laptop was tired of it. So, but we did have there's only 2 baptisms here, but there were 3 baptisms during the week. We did the same thing of going out door knocking and gospel meeting and teaching and Bible classes and all of those things as well. But since we were there, they had put in a baptistry. We used to have to go down to a stream or a river in order to baptize people, but they put in a baptistry. Now, it's not the most convenient baptistry, the way it's built, but it's a bathtub. It's just a small bathtub that they put in there in all of this concrete and block and stuff. But it works. And this was a lady. The reason there's another lady there, that's the preacher's wife, was a lady being baptized, and she happened to be wearing a dress. And so it's a small thing, and sometimes you got to hold people's feet down and all to keep them in the water because just the way it is. And so she was there to help with her because of her dress, and it was going to float up, and so just keep things in a good way with all the men helping her as well. So that's the reason that Esperanza is there helping with that baptism. It's not a normal thing for a woman to do that. It's never happened before. I just want to set that, kind of like that. Women aren't having leadership or anything. But in that case, she needed some extra help because she was a woman. So, all right. Well, again, I think we probably run out of time, but I want to thank you for your support and prayers and encouragement, and also love for the lost, because that's really what this is about. Love for the lost, but also a love for the church, because we also have an opportunity to be with other Christians and get to know other Christians and encourage other Christians, and they're an encouragement to us as well. We go and we're encouraged by them, and we hope that we are an encouragement to them. But as you saw in the last photo, baptism, and that's really where it begins. And so if you have faith and you believe, you've repented of your sins, and you're willing to confess Jesus as the Son of God, that you believe in Him and are willing to be baptized tonight, then you can have the same forgiveness of sins that those new Christians have there in those photos. Or if you need to respond for any other reason, we invite you to come as we stand and sing.
Would you live for Jesus and be always pure and good? Would you